This meeting is being recorded.
Welcome everybody to Come Back to Love. And today I am so happy to be here with Angela Clement, who is a grief expert, a grief coach, and who I met actually per your invitation to participate, or actually I think I invited myself to participate in your grief summit, which I felt so drawn to because the way that you wrote about grief, the way that I feel you are, I felt you sort of moving through it. It just resonated with me and my own life experience. So we thought we'd be live on Come Back to Love, but we will be recorded and that's fine. And I just wanted to invite you to participate in the Come Back to Love community, including some of the folks that you invited, which I'm really grateful for. Because so many people are processing some kind of loss and grief before they come back to love. And it's such an important topic. I mean, it's our entire lives, right? We can't live without it. We feel like we can't live with it. And it's the way life goes. And we both, I know, have had pretty significant losses. So I'm looking forward to hearing your wisdom and having this conversation with you. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here. It's too bad that the live didn't work out, but we'll figure that out for next time. I always say everything happens for a reason. It'll all be good.
Exactly. My question is always, what's right about this situation that I'm not getting?
That's right.
And who knows what it is.
Yeah.
So I would love, Angela, if you would just give the listeners a little bit more context of like who you are and how you came to this work. I know you came to it because of personal reasons and you were doing something completely different before that, but I think that context is really helpful.
Yeah. So I was a school principal. We lived in a small town called Val Marie, a very small town in southwestern Saskatchewan. My husband was a rancher and I worked at the school, and we had two lovely children and life was really good. It was really good. And then in January of 2021, my husband was diagnosed with colon cancer. And yeah, and it was, shocking. The thing that comes to my mind is like, well, that happens to other people. We always think that it's not going to happen to us. That's not part of our story, or at least we try to push those things away because it's just too much to really think about losing a spouse. So he passed away in October of 2021. So about 2 months. Yeah. And so during that time, I was scrambling, trying to find ways to help him and help me try to get through this. And I immersed myself in a lot of energy healing classes, and I started practicing more. I had dabbled in it before, but I really started to take it to heart. I followed Donna Eden and a lot of her practices and exercises, and I used a lot of that to help me through. I enlisted healers to help us with that journey. And then when he passed away, it was like, I had retired from my position because I needed to look after him. And it wasn't like I wasn't close to retirement. In fact, I was within a year or two of retiring anyways. And we had all these plans, right? We had all these plans. We were going to travel. He had sold the ranch so that we could, get away and do the things we wanted to do. And it just all evaporated. And so, a lot of the viewers will know the feeling of, being punched in the gut. It's just, you've had this significant loss. And then all of a sudden you're in this place where you don't even know who you are or what you're supposed to do now. And so that's my background. That's how I got rolling on where I am now. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Yeah, what strikes me, and I think also will strike the listeners, is what you said. It felt like a punch to the gut, and that shock because none of us expect, typically, we don't expect even, I mean, that's a very short amount of time from diagnosis till the time he passed. My partner also had about 10 months. My father had about 15 months, and they were all much younger than they should have been when they died. But just that amount of time to move from that shock into, into what, like, maybe you can speak to that, because I understand, and I heard you say, like, you had to be functional. You had to take care, you were taking care of him. You were figuring out how to get resources for both of you. And at the same time, there's this like shock to the system that's really intense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's, it takes over all of your days, really, because you wake up in the morning thinking about that. You go to bed at night thinking about that, like what's going to happen. Your mind is just circling, cycling, trying to figure out what to do. And so, there was a lot of learning that had to take place between then and now for me to get where I am.
Yeah, well, that's really evident, because for me, and I was much younger, and it was somebody, when my partner died, we had been together 4 or 5 years. It wasn't a spouse. It wasn't, the parent of my children and all of that. So it's very different. And I was much younger. I was like 40 years old, 40, 41, 42 years old. And I just 2 years later, could barely even talk about it without literally crying and weeping. So you've obviously done a lot of work, and I'm guessing and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but a strong faith, maybe. That's what it seems like. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah. Well, I think what I developed was really a faith in something bigger than what's here, right in front of me. Like there has to be more, I think is the feeling that I got. And also that I just wasn't going to settle for waking up every morning and being miserable. That just wasn't part of I couldn't allow myself to do that. I just kept searching and hoping that there would be something out there that would help me through this, despite what others were saying, right?
Right. So you mentioned a lot of different things that you reached for, and I also really understand that. And I don't know if this was your experience, but for me, when I'm in a crisis like that, I can sometimes from less of a sort of regulated place be like, okay, I'm trying to find the thing that's going to work, that's going to fix, that's going to take this feeling away. So that's one piece that's really normal. But I wonder, despite how you did it, when you just sort of reflect on it now, what was the thing that helped you the most? Was it something internal? Was it something external?
It's definitely internal. So like the understanding, I think that we all, love goes on forever, right? And we all continue. And so I think that whole understanding about death and life and my belief in how things work and my connection with Blaine, because I really feel that connection is still there. It's very strong, and we're still trying to build it, right?
No, you keep saying right, which is sort of one of those things we say like in conversation. And I'm thinking like, maybe like people listening might be like, well, maybe life goes on afterwards. And maybe that's why I was saying like you have a strong faith, because I think you do believe in those. You believe that strongly. And that must have been very helpful. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of want to back up to that piece, but I also want to say, like you piqued my curiosity, your connection to Blaine is still so strong and you're still working to build it. Can you say more about that?
Yeah, because, well, I will say like as sometime when he was sick, I remember waking up in the middle of the night and just meditating, because I felt like that really calmed my nerves. And through that meditation, I felt like there was some type of connection to him. He was still there, but I felt like there was a connection in another way It's hard to explain, but I also knew that no matter what happened, that connection would always be there. And so now, when I feel like I want to have that connection, I can go back to that place. And I've heard other people talk about this. It's really hard to explain, but it's something that happens when you open yourself up to knowing that there can be a connection beyond.
Yes.
There's something that happens. It's hard to explain. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. You're reminding me that after my partner's name was Dale, after Dale died, I remember lying in bed, like maybe even just the next day or the day after that, and thinking like, oh, if we could only have just had like one more kiss, like one more, like something. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, my lips started tingling right on the top lip and the bottom lip, just all tingling. And then I felt like other tingling on my body. And I just knew, no doubt it was him able to just be there, be present, and communicate with me in a physical way. It was just unbelievable. Yeah. And you're right. Like once you have an experience like that, there's really no going back, because a lot of times people will have an experience and maybe it's a little more subtle. I know I've had plenty of experiences that have been subtle enough that I can say, well, did that really happen? Yeah. But then they're the ones that there's just no denying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So do you feel like your faith is really, because I'm thinking about the people who are listening too, like not everybody has that strong of a faith. Mm-hmm. I wonder if that's been your strongest support for yourself. And I wonder what else has been helpful too.
Yeah. Well, I think, just getting out of the mind so much, letting it run with whatever thoughts that it runs with, and recognizing that it is there to keep you safe. And so a lot of these thoughts and things that come up are just to do that. And sometimes they don't make a lot of sense. We think there's still a tiger in the room and it's not there, right? People talk about that all the time, that we fear things that haven't happened yet. We fear things that are not happening, right? So that happens in the mind, and that is what stirs up a lot of the emotion that we get. And so calming that and just recognizing that the mind is doing that to keep you safe, and realizing that can help take down some of that emotion.
Absolutely. And you mentioned meditation. For me, that's the strongest tool for catching those thoughts. Is that what you used, or what you do use for catching those thoughts?
I was very much against meditation at the beginning because I had this preconceived notion about what it was. I think, you sit there for hours and you breathe and you just like a lot of fun. But I took a class called the Wonder Method. And in that class, it's not considered meditation, but it kind of is. It's like feeling the sensations in your body and just sitting and feeling those sensations. And to me, it just felt amazing to just do that. And somehow I just decided that, this is what I want to keep doing. And so I'm doing a form of meditation that's probably not what I thought it was, right?
Right. Yes, for sure. Wow. Can you say it again? The wonderment?
The Wonder Method. Yeah.
Wonder Method.
Yeah. It's by Alan Harriet. It's probably not a very well-known method, but him and his wife created it. And it's very simple, easy. And, they offer classes in this. So it's worthwhile looking. They have a book. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, they might be more well-known in Canada too, because I know that's where you are. And for me, that practice reminds me of, mindfulness practice, where you're being mindful with your body by paying attention to the sensations and allowing the sensations rather than quickly trying to like distract yourself or stuff them down. Sounds like for you, it was like this reservoir of just like goodness.
Yeah. It just felt really good. And so when something feels good, you just keep doing it because
yes. That's very good advice too. If something feels good, keep doing it.
Yeah. And there's lots of things, there's breath work, and there's, Donna Eden's daily energy routine has been magical for me and a lot of other people. So there's lots of tools that you can use to kind of get yourself to that place.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing Donna Eden here. She's such a treasure.
Mm-hmm.
And has been for many of us. And there might even be listeners who haven't heard of her before, but highly recommend checking her out. She's amazing.
Yeah.
And really good to hear that you were using her practices. Yeah. So you've dropped in some really good tools for people listening. And, my work is about getting through that and coming back to love. And in some ways, yours is the same. I mean, whatever language you're using, it feels like, your work, and maybe you can tell us a little bit more. And I know you have a book that you wanted to share with us, an ebook.
Well, absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So maybe just a sentence about a little more about your work would be great, because I think what I was just about to say is when people come back to love, it's like they've already done a lot of the grief work, but also people don't know, like, where do I do the grief work? It's so pushed aside in society. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that and about the ebook, and then I'll share it with our listeners.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So through my experience, I met a lady called Julie Clough, and I took her grief certification course, and I went through the program first and then took the course. So I've, taken that and kind of developed my own program, which I call Awakening Through Grief, because it has more of the awakening aspect into it. So the foundation of this program is amazing. I mean, obviously, I'm testament to that, right? Like she helped me with so much. And so I use that as the basis of the program. But then when we discuss, we talk about, more about our beliefs and all of the things that we've been talking about up until now, right? Yeah. And it's so individual now too, because, I try to use my intuitive ability to meet people where they are and try to help them move through. And then I also hold, these group get-togethers, I call, where people come and just have their grief acknowledged. There's no expectation where anybody has to share or anything, but they end up being really profound. People will share resources that they've used or stories about what they've gone through. And it's not, sometimes you can get those groups where you can have a lot of stories, a lot of sad stories, and come out of it feeling more sad than you were when you went in. Yes,
definitely.
It's not like that. And what I do is I hold a space for healing in that place. I can do that.
Is that online, Angela? Yes, you can. Yes. Is that online?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I would love.
Yeah,
I'd love to share that resource as well.
For sure.
And people have actually been asking recently, so I will be sending some people your way for sure. Yes. And the gift, the ebook that I'm going to share.
So the ebook is something that I wrote early on and kind of added to a little bit. Basically, it's just some really good advice for people going through grief that really helped me in my journey and still continues to help me as I move through. So,
That is so perfect. I'm really looking forward to sharing both of those, honestly. And people often ask, like, where can I find a support group? And it's almost all on Zoom these days. So it's really, really good to know that I can send them to you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love, the connection that we have here, because, that whole self-love piece and coming back to love is where it ends up once you kind of get through that grief part and you get over that initial emotion, then it's like finding yourself.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and I feel like that your expertise comes in as well. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. I think they just follow each other. And then there's some overlap too, right?
Right.
Sometimes people come in and they're like, oh, I have grief work to do first, or at the same time as like reconnecting with myself, this grief comes up often.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much. I'm so glad we were able to do this, and I will share this with the Come Back to Love community, and I'm so happy to have you as a guest and have you as a colleague and a new friend. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. We will say farewell to everybody out there. Have a beautiful day. Feel free to post questions in the below this video, because Angela is in the group and we will both respond to any questions that you have. So thank you for being here. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.